Do you know what time it is? It's Minisode, episode 43 of A Doctor's Perspective podcast. Check out the dentist series. It's going on. It's going to be good. It is good, I should say. You can go to .net/dentist with an S. Today's episode. Look, a lot of us use dentist as an analogy for what we do because people kind of get it. You got to brush your teeth all the time. You got to floss all the time. You go in twice a year to get a checkup whether you feel like you need it or not. You know, as far as dentists, they have their own issues, as you can tell. I don't want to say it's an upsell, but when you need a crown versus just a filling, people don't always want to do it. If you want to do an implant, that costs a lot more money, and it might be what the patient needs, but they can't afford it. So what do? Also in the series, just in general, buying and selling practices. So lots of information that you could definitely carry over to your own style of clinic from that series. So I'm excited about that. All right, today's episode, though, is The Science of Social Media, Neuro-marketing, episode 115. Before I go, I wanted to let you know also, been listening to a side hustle podcast, so I'll be talking about later on. There was a really great episode about like option trading. I'm not even going to try to summarize that one. I don't know. That's above my pay grade right there. But it was called Side Hustle Show. It was good. And then somebody else turned me on to a podcast called Choose FI, Financial Independence. A really good one. The neurology of marketing is super important. It can conjure up certain emotions. You know, emotions is what sells more than logic. So your product design, your packaging, you got to have colors and a style that can leverage your audience's feeling. All right, I can do that with colors. You can do it with a very simple brand. And I think everybody says Apple, but there's more than just Apple. There's a lot of brands that they're very basic. They're crisp. They use a lot of white space to convey expensive, if you will. For that matter, you could have a brand that's like bubbly and happy and think like Fruit Loops, you know, just like obviously it's set up for kids and fun. And then you can think of something like, what's that place called? White Black? They have a more fancy in the mall. It's got a more contemporary, fancy logo and styling about it that makes you think, I'm going to spend some more money to buy some clothes here. They did recommend a book called Brain Influence. You can check that out, Brain Influence. Fonts. Whether it's online or in your packaging, a little bit more online is what we're talking about right now. An easy-to-read font makes you think it's more like a common task, which could be what you're going for. If you need more of a memory recall, you might have more complex font. I would suggest checking out episode 115 show notes, and they have like a list of what those actually mean, and they go more detail. But a complex font would have more swirls in it. It's a more complicated font to read a little bit, and so it kind of stands out, memory recall. Ready for the images. We've said this before. It's a good thing to repeat. If you're going to have a person in the ad, you make sure they're looking at whatever it is you want the audience to look at. So if they're looking out off the ad, that's not helping you. You want them to be looking at the product. You know, if you have a book, have them looking at the book. And people will look directly at their eyes. Where's their eyes going? To the book. There it is. Boom. Or the coupon code. 20% off. That's where their eyes are. Awesome. Of course, I want them smiling as well. It's a mood booster. So definitely have them smiling. And one thing they mentioned, I spent a good bit on, if you have an e-commerce site or you're wondering where people are going on your site when they're visiting it, maybe not getting enough phone calls, they're not using that live chat feature as much as you expected they would. You've got a whole bunch of articles and you spend a lot of time on them and you're like, man, are even people reading this? Of course, writing articles is good for like SEO and Google, so that's a different viewpoint. But if you want to know where are people going on your site, in a previous episode we talked about it actually, the 3 things that you need to have. It's called heat mapping. A couple places like called Crazy Egg, Zoho, Z-O-H-O, or Mouseflow. Those are 3 sites. I believe they're all paid, but you can analyze your site to see what people are doing. Are they hovering over your logo, over your picture? Are they just visiting the doctor page, the location page? Are they even noticing the live chat on the bottom right? If not, change the color. You can do some things to tweak it if that's really what you want people to start doing. So if that is something that's really, you want somebody to look at, you want somebody to venture into, maybe you have a giveaway that nobody wants to get. Well, you can see, are people even hovering in that area? And if not, change the picture. You may find that if you change the picture, you can actually get more opt-ins, change the font color, the size, and that's when you start tweaking and seeing what you can do better to make it better. All right, I think that is about it for today. Show notes at doctorsperspective.net/M43. We just went # behind the curtain.